Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Today's video is very different than a normal video. We're going to take a different turn for just a moment and talk about something that many of you may think is unrelated to prepping and homesteading. I beg to differ. I'm going to let you know that the content of this video, the subject matter, is probably not for young ears. So if they can hear this, they probably shouldn't hear it. I'm going to do my best to keep it as G-rated as possible, at least with my words. But the content is not something little kids need to be. In fact, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about I have to choose my words wisely. This trans stuff with children and drag queens and that kind of stuff. I know that some of you are gonna say, what does this have to do with this channel? You know, we prepare for the world that we live in and the world that's coming at us. And this stuff is very much part of it. Some of you may believe different than me. Some of you may not agree with everything that I say, especially when it comes to a moral and spiritual perspective, and that's okay. That's your business. That's between you and God, and I'm not here to tell you how you should live your life. In fact, if you are okay with some of these more modern, let's just call it that, modern ideas of what a man and a woman is, and what they wear, and how they act, and how they live their life and what they do in their bedroom. If you take a more modern approach than I do, that's fine. That's your business. You can do that, and I wouldn't personally do anything to stop you. But when you start to do these things in front of children, and you use very vulgar, explicit language, and you show things that are explicit and vulgar to a child, that's where I think you've crossed the line, and that's where I think, as a father, as a parent, as someone that has a duty to protect those that are weaker, I think that's when we do have a right to step in. And I just want to say that I have gotten feedback from the times that I've talked about this from people that say that they believe in an alternative lifestyle. That's how they live their life, but they also believe that it should never be talked about or done in front of children. In fact, I met a man a few months ago who lived kind of that lifestyle. And we got to talking about it, and I very clearly let him know where I stand and where my beliefs and morality is. But he also agreed with me that this has no place, that lifestyle has no place around children. And I am going to get to a point with this, so bear with me. I am not going to show you the video. It is far too awful for me to show it on here. And I'm not going to be explicit with the lyrics and the things that was said. If you are that interested for, maybe to show it to other people, I do have the video in my possession, and you can find it on Twitter. It's all over the internet. But I'll send it to you if you want it. Over the weekend, there was another drag queen show for kids in Plano, Texas. I just want to stop for just a moment and say there's been a lot of this stuff happening in Texas. I do believe that Texas is becoming a big battleground state. And if you are a Texas resident, my wife and her family is all from Texas. If you're a Texas resident, I'm telling you, you need to be holding your public officials' feet to the fire. I don't care how conservative they are. You need to be letting them know, if they do not stand up against this and do something about it, that you'll be finding someone else to cast your vote for. But anyways, over the weekend in Plano, Texas, a restaurant, okay? We're not talking necessarily some seedy bar after midnight, in a dark alley or whatever. A during the day afternoon brunch is what it was billed as. It was at a little restaurant, trendy diner kind of place, where you can have some food and a glass of wine. They put on this show, and you can watch the video. And I know many of you are going to say, yes, this stuff's been happening. And it has. And every time it happens, it sickens me to my core and enrages me. But this one, I think, to me, in my opinion, really crossed the line, if that's even possible. But this one was, I feel, way worse than any of the others I've seen. There were very obviously children around. They were watching this in the crowd. And of course there was a man dressed as a woman dancing and lip syncing to a song that the lyrics, I don't listen to the kind of music. I'd never heard of it. I had to look it up from some hip hop rap artist. The lyrics had to be some of the most vulgar, grotesque lyrics I have ever heard in my life. And I mean, I worked on the streets as a police officer, as a law enforcement officer. I've heard some pretty bad stuff, folks. And this one definitely was over the top. And this person was dancing around and lifting their clothes up, showing their underwear, making a lot of very sexual gestures, while lip syncing to some of the most, if not the most, vulgar and grotesque lyrics I have ever heard in my entire life. All while there were children. That one little girl looked to be not much more than 4 years old, maybe 5, was just a few feet away, while people were giving them dollars, and all these women were just cheering them on and smiling and thought it was the most wonderful thing in the world. Now, please don't fill the comment section with what you think should happen to this person, because YouTube will not like that, and your comments will most likely be deleted by YouTube, and it could actually hurt this channel. So please, do me a favor and not do that. I kind of have an idea of what you are thinking. Probably not much different than me. The point that I'm getting to this is the world that we are living in now. Excuse me. Whether you like it or not, this is being shoved down our throats. It's permeated probably every part of the United States by now. I have heard reports from numerous people that live in very rural and conservative areas that are dealing with this kind of stuff in their local schools, their local communities. It's everywhere. And on one hand, I want to say that I believe that this is another sign of the downfall of our nation. That this is just pointing the direction to a collapse. Not just a moral collapse, not just a spiritual collapse, but an overall, all-out, complete, total collapse. I cannot imagine how any nation, how any people can continue down this path, including all the other wickedness going on. But this is right up there towards the top. Continue down this path of this level of debauchery and still maintain a society of any sort. History has shown over and over again that when a country and a people do this, they end up in failure. And I believe most certainly that this is where it's going to take us. Even if you don't include all the other things that are going on, the wars and the economy and the everything else that's happening that we're all aware of, this one issue on its own is enough. And I understand from a spiritual, biblical perspective, and I agree with you. God's not going to be mocked. And this nation has turned its back on him. And at some point, they're going to have to pay for these sins. But I want to take this into another direction, because I still hear from people that say, I have family members that I'm trying to wake them up and help them, encourage them to get themselves prepared because of all this stuff going on, and they keep telling me that it's not that bad, that I'm overreacting, that I watch too many of that YouTube stuff, and that, things will be okay. And I'll admit that there may be a slight chance that all of us that talk about these kind of things, about the economy and wars and everything else, and where we believe this is all headed, there is a slight chance that we are wrong. there's a slight chance that the economy could do exactly what the White House says it's going to do and turn itself around and be bustling and booming and everyone be successful. There's a slight chance that all of these threats and rumors of wars will all be subsided soon and war would be averted. I'll admit that mathematically there's probably a slight chance of that. I don't think it's a very good one, and I don't believe it's very likely at all, if at all, that any of those things will happen. But like I said, even if all of those other things that we talk about weren't the case, this one on its own is enough. Even if the world doesn't collapse, even if the economy doesn't collapse, even if the US dollar doesn't collapse, even if we don't end up in World War III or nuclear war, even if the supply chain gets better, even if all of these things happen and they end up being pretty decent and the world goes back to a successful and prosperous economic and geopolitical situation, this one issue that is growing at such a rapid rate, for me, is all I need to justify the lifestyle that I live and that my family lives. Because if this continues on, and you can't, I don't think you could make a very good case that, oh, this is just a little weird spot in history. Because we've been doing this for decades now, getting worse, with the removal of prayer in schools, with the allowance of abortion and gay marriage, and on and on and on to where we are at today. And the possibility of this getting turned around and America falling to her knees in repentance, I don't think is a very good chance. It could happen, but probably not very likely. And if this just continues down the path that it's going, even where it is right now, it's more than enough of a reason for me to choose to live my life and to take my family and to live our life outside of this system. Folks, even if the world doesn't collapse, even if the world doesn't end up in some global war, even if all these things that we talk about don't happen, this one issue alone that is absolutely happening. It's happening all across America. It's in our schools. It's in our businesses you go in to shop. It's all around you. And there's almost no way to avoid it other than to live a lifestyle completely separate from this world. And the lifestyle that I encourage on here of self-sufficiency, of homeschooling, of living out and away from the world is about the only way that I could find that you could physically not be part of this and to shield it from your children's eyes and ears. And if that is the only reason to live this lifestyle, then I'd say it's a pretty good reason to live this way. This stuff that they are doing, it's absolutely horrific. And this one that I saw today that I'm speaking of, in my opinion, is the worst one I've seen yet. And it blows me away that parents and grandparents could sit there and watch this. It blows me away that people in the community don't stand up and do something about it, to stop it, to prevent it, to speak out against it. And it's because we live in a cowardly nation, filled with cowardly people, and that may upset you. That may upset you a lot because you're going to sit there and say, I'm not a coward. If I'd been there, I'd done something about it. I hope you would. But I'm talking in general as a whole. That's the world that we live in. No one, at least in mass, has the courage to stand up against this type of wickedness. And maybe you do, and I hope that you do. But your voice is probably not going to be heard. And maybe that's why people end up not standing up. But I'm telling you, this is why, if nothing else, why we live this way. And this is why I encourage people to live this way. It is absolutely horrific, the things that are being talked about, the things that are being taught in schools. If you don't know about it, if you're not aware of it, you need to wake up and be aware of it. I'm not saying that you need to watch all the stuff, you need to listen to all the lyrics and watch all the absolutely horrible videos that are out there, but you at least need to be aware of it, because it is all around you, and it's getting into your children's minds and your grandchildren's minds, and you need to be guarded against it more than you ever thought you needed to be. And you need to guard your family against it. And if you have to put your foot down and live like, raise your children almost like they're in a prison, if it prevents them from being around this kind of stuff, then it's probably worth it. Folks, this is, if nothing else, this is why we are getting our houses in order. It's why we are preparing ourselves in every way, and most especially spiritually. Because this kind of grotesque, ungodly, evil, wicked witchcraft is all around us. It is absolutely horrible. And I'll go to my grave trying to keep this away from my children and teaching them a much more godly and righteous way. Because this certainly isn't it. I don't see how anyone, anywhere, could make the argument that it is. I believe that these people in their heart know what they're doing is horrible and bad. And they're doing it out of absolute rebellion. Absolute rebellion to morals, to God, and to everything that they've ever known to be true and righteous. They're rebelling against it all, because there's no way any sane person could sit and watch this kind of stuff and say that it's okay for a small child to see it and hear it. Folks, it is time to get your houses in order. Prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.